Welcome to episode 2 of Counting Tracks here on BoyForDetroit.com. I'm Roger C. Alongside me, a gentleman who is a, this one is kind of like, so this was in the works, so I just want to let you know, it's kind of a disclaimer for this podcast. This was something that we were going to do down the line, but due to circumstances that will be out of our control, we decided to move it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about a band that is close to this gentleman's heart. Jason Pinkham, welcome.
Hey, buddy.
And
I think I've earned the title of resident Linkin Park expert.
Yes. If you listen to our other podcasts, which you can find on iTunes, Stitcher, and other various media, Jason seems to have an Easter egg of dropping Linkin Park lyrics or dropping Linkin Park whenever he can humanly possibly can. So we're going to do one on the album Meteora, which came out on March 25th of 2003 through the Warner Brothers record label. And so, and this is off their debut studio album, Hybrid Theory. So we're going to talk about this album because this is the album I'm most familiar with. And I'll be honest with you folks, just as a disclaimer as well to add on to this, I'm a casual Linkin Park fan. Probably after this album, I really rarely listen to him. I admit that sometimes I have clashed with Jason about this band because I'll say a band and he'll go, well, that band is not as good as Linkin Park. And then I think he just does it to bait me. I don't know. But nevertheless, Meteora is the album we want to discuss because it is the most popular album for this period of time. It was one of their most highest selling albums of all time. And it's an album, too, that really put the nail in the coffin of the rap rock genre. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Jason, welcome. This is the first episode. I had Hookslide on, and we went all over the Beatles, but that was a little different. But this is we're going to be album focused from here on out. So
Formula loyal, if you will.
Yes, exactly. So this is an album that took a year to record. And if you look at some of the singles on there, all the singles, once we list them, we're going track by track. So how Counting Tracks works is we're going to review an album, go track for track, talk about a little bit about it, what the impact it had on the song, on the guest I have, or myself, depending on how I feel about the album. And we go from there. We have a discussion about the band a little bit, get a little background of the band as well. So Chester Bennington passed away last week of apparent suicide. So again, this was something that was going to happen, so just wanted to make that clear. So, Meteora is, again, one of those, it's an album that, like, Jason, we've talked about this a little bit before the show, before the podcast, in our pre-production meeting, if you will, just to be all fancy. It's a band that, this is an album that is kind of I think it's polarizing. It's polarizing in the sense that this is a band that you either really like or you really don't. There's no in between here. But I would say this album kind of really was a good fit to kind of ride for people who, ride or die by rock radio or the casual rap, like that kind of genre fan.
Well, it is, I think the fair phrase is it's the definitive album of nu metal. And I know that even that sentence alone is somewhat polarizing to nu metal fans, but if you had to give, say you meet an alien, for lack of a better term, say you meet an alien and they've never heard of nu metal. If they ask you what nu metal is and you want to define nu metal, this is one of the albums you would go to. You might go to Korn's Follow the Leader, you might go to Limp Bizkit's $3 Bill, y'all, but this is the one example I think you would probably not be embarrassed of. I think that Korn was a little too emotional and Limp Bizkit was a little too
hokey.
Hokey's a good word. I won't take that away from you, but I would say also it's like being an ICP fan. Like, you'll defend them, but the reality is that this is kind of just garbage.
In terms of accolades for this album, in terms of top albums of 2003, was voted number 21st. Top albums of 2000, 178th. And
it was nominated for a Grammy for the track that no one likes, the song 12 Session, which is the DJ track.
Yeah. And then we'll get to that shortly too. But it's an album too that, like I said, it was all over rock radio. Every single radio format, those big rock formats, had really no choice but to play this album. So
it made it to pop radio too.
Yeah, it made it to pop radio, and it was one of those. And like that was something that, like, Korn and those Limp Bizkit was already on TRL, and this band's one of the last bastion of that era of TRL with Carson Daly. If you guys are familiar with that show, it's a countdown show, and this band was on there all the time.
Yeah, and this album specifically was very, very hyped. And if you bought the special edition of this album, which I did in 2003, it came with a special, I think it's like an hour and a half, it might be an hour DVD of the making of, which is longer than the fucking album for what it's worth. Like twice the length of the album, a making of. And you find out, in the making of that they went through an arduous process, not only to record everything, because as Dave Grohl, to their detriment, has pointed out, they like to control every element of their sound. I mean, down to the minutiae of where within a count a beat lands. They like to control that. And not only just the recording, but also there's rumors that there's upwards of 35 to 40 additional tracks that didn't make the cut, that have slowly been leaked out through, they have an LP Underground label that releases like every couple of years, but those have kind of tapered off. We may never hear those songs, but I am curious to see where they went artistically at a time where they were, at their most commercial. Like that's the one thing I'll say about this album. For as much as I love this album, and I do, it is a staple of my youth. Like, it's a defining point in my life. 2003, I'm 17 years old. I'm at my white boy angriest, and I need somebody to tell me what's going on. And as much as I love it, it is also their most definitive, like, let's make a Linkin Park album.
Now, here's the thing that cracks. It's interesting to me. It kind of cracks me up a little bit, and also is a thing about the band. It's like, who is the leader of the band? Is it Chester Bennington? Is it Mike Shinoda? Who is the
Shinoda?
Shinoda? Is it Shinoda?
Shinoda.
Is it Mike Shinoda? Who is the leader of this band at this time?
At this time, I don't think they have a definitive leader. I think the leader of the band is Rick Rubin, or whoever's producing the album, which I actually don't know offhand.
Oh, the producer of this album, by the way, is, I have that right here pulled up. This is before the Rick Rubin era. So
pre-Rubin.
Yeah. So this was the part of this process of this band, by the way, was started the pre-production stuff. Started in Shinola's base in his house. A lot of the songs were made in Pro Tools, and the Doug Gilmour was the producer. So this is the last. I believe this is the last Don Gilmour album produced. So
for a second there, I thought you were talking about former Toronto Maple Leaf great Doug Gilmour.
Oh, the great! In his off time, he would make gold records.
Yeah, but I drop platinum dimes, and then I punch people in the face.
Yeah, I punch people in the face, and I'm actually a pretty good scorer in front of the net. So, but anyways,
one might say Brendan Shanahan East. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So this band, and Bennington was a band, started writing songs, and Hybrid Theory, they waited a year before Hybrid. They wanted to, I think this was the album to prove to people, hey, we're not just going to be Orgy or one of these, I think another, Stabbing Westward. We're going to be around for a while. And they established a very good work ethic with this album. And whether you like Linkin Park or not, the one thing you can always respect, Jason, and it comes through in this album, is their work ethic with this.
Absolutely. That's actually what comes through on that DVD also, is like they controlled not just every element of every song and every word that you hear and every sound that you hear, but they also controlled every element of production and every element of every aesthetic that went along with this. Like the album cover is now actually famous 13 years removed, of a guy spray painting their logo on the ground. I forget who's actually doing the spray painting in the background. And then when you opened up the lyric book, it actually unfolded out to the whole poster board that he was painting, like sort of like it was like his interpretation, his like graffiti interpretation of this album to some extent. I don't really know. I don't remember because it's been so long since I've watched that DVD. But the imagery is very like on purpose, and it's not only on purpose, it's also well thought out, and there's a lot of time and effort put into it, and it's very clear. Because the themes are very consistent, album to album to album, and they when they evolve, they never evolve too drastically, specifically from Hybrid Theory to Meteora, because Meteora is just Hybrid Theory refined. And, you can say otherwise, and other people can say otherwise, but I think that Meteora is just, Hybrid Theory 2.0 and better. Hybrid Theory is more raw, but Meteora I think is more refined, and I guess that's really depends on where you lie musically. You know, is your definition of good music, you know, raw emotion, or is your definition of good music like perfectly executed artistry? Like, and this is kind of where they are. Is like, yes, it is just guys screaming into microphones, but they're doing it with poignancy.
And, you know, it's funny, I'm reading a little bit about this album and remembering when it came out and how popular it was in the rock radio format, because, you know, and this is before we get to the tracks, really, you know, as we talk about the pop culture, set the scene for it too. This is around that period of time, this is a album where Rolling Stone reviews still mattered, and one of the things they said about this album says, quote, they squeezed the last remaining life of nearly this extinct formula, and they did that very well. But technology-wise, Jason, this is the era before Spotify. This is the era before even Pandora. So you're looking at the last time CDs and albums were considered something. This is even before vinyl come back, and CDs were in this still. CDs were winding down a little bit. You started seeing some stuff online, you know, LimeWire, for anybody out there, Napster. That era was starting to happen, and then, you know, trying to find files for the song, and this is the beginning of this. But this is, I think, you know, honestly, Jason, I feel like this is a good representation of the last of the 90s being kind of putting the nail in the coffin a little bit with this album.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Much like, it's one of those things where it's like, it is the late 90s somehow like got like held in the closet for a little bit and then was released afterwards. Like, there's another great movie example of this. You ever heard of the movie Antitrust with Ryan Felipe?
Yes. That
That is straight up a 1996 cyber throw that got released in 2002 or whatever.
I remember how dated that movie felt. That's a good call.
And that's the same thing with Meteora. Like, a little different though because it's actually good, but but it's the same concept of it is, you know, this great 90s, like, and again, as we discussed before, it's that very strict verse chorus verse pattern, which they break from later in albums, and they actually adhere to sometimes. But it was when we as a society weren't really doing that yet, weren't really breaking from that. Everybody was kind of just verse chorus verse bridge chorus, and you know, Linkin Park was like, well, we're gonna do that exactly that perfectly that, and we're gonna do every song like there's a you know, I think I've told you before, there's a great line in a Korn video. Ironically, the song is called "Y'all Want a Single," and there's they're just flashing record industry facts over the video. And one of the record industry facts is record producers prefer the record industry prefers songs under 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And every song on this album, save for track 3, Somewhere I Belong, is under 3 minutes. I'm sorry, track 3 and track 6, which is easier to run. The rest of them are under 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So it is designed and packaged and controlled to be a singles churning machine. That's exactly what it is, and it does it very well.
And, you know, you look at the first week it came out, it sold 810,000 copies,
which is unheard of today.
Yeah, it's unheard of today. As of a few years ago, it sold 66.2. I cannot say numbers. 6.2 million copies in the United States and over 27 million worldwide. Yeah,
that's a good number.
Yeah, and in terms of you're looking at officially where they stack on Billboard, ranked number 36 on Billboard's Hot 200 albums of the decade. So let's kick off and let's talk about "Don't Stay." Forget the forward. But
the forward is 13 seconds.
Yeah, 13 seconds. So
it shouldn't even be a track. I mean, literally, it should be that like negative time when you put an album in. You know, there's like that in between tracks on discs where it's like -5, -4, -3, -2, -1. Then it goes into the song, and it's always like some like interlude. That's what the forward should be. It should not be its own track. But anyways, "Don't Stay" is a song that I think got overlooked. I think it got forgotten, much like an album will do hopefully later, 1,000 Suns. It's a great bit of artistry that's just kind of buried. It didn't get released as a single. It doesn't get radio play ever. I've never heard it on a radio, at least in my life.
No.
Yeah, but it's a great song. Like it is quick. It's to the point. There's no you're just in it, and right away you know it's a Linkin Park song because you hear, you know, as we've discussed before, you hear very machined drumming. You know, very you know, and then walk, and so you have this like very like we are Linkin Park. This is our song.
And as you hear probably underneath us right now, we're playing a couple seconds to each song, so you guys get familiar with how this album kind of blends together.
And if you're hearing this track, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is very Linkin Park.
Yeah, and that's in they did not disappoint their fans as they went straight from Hybrid Theory to this. The next track is Somewhere I Belong. It is a song that I could not escape for the life of me when I went to go. I seen them at Summer Sanitarium with Deftones, Limp Bizkit, and Metallica during the Saint Anger album tour, which is a terrible album, which I hope we never discuss that album. But
maybe on Over Under Fair.
Yeah, maybe
we just make fun of it. Well, we already did.
Yeah, we already did that. So, Somewhere I Belong is a song you could not escape, and it was, I think, one of the biggest radio catch songs. And Jason, this is a song like Styx, like Night Ranger. This is a band like this song was made for radio and cut for radio for that particular reason.
Yeah, this is like, oh, you liked our first album? We're gonna do that at half tempo. Like it is the same. This is, and I love it. I love it. This is a song that is. There's a great part right towards the end of this song. I don't think we'll get to it on our little underlay here, but there's a great part at the end of this song, or towards the middle end, the last chorus, where the music it's a fraction of a second, but it's before Chester starts a chorus. It's after the bridge and before Chester starts a chorus. There's a synced up or a syncopated guitar snare hit that's a dun 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 dun, and it for some reason every time I smile, I don't know why. But it's this little, like, perfectly syncopated, and you know it's perfectly syncopated because they probably took out a fucking computer and timed it. But it's just perfect, and I really enjoy it because, like, all the rest of the music cuts. So there's this little, like, 1 second gap where it's like, you know, dun 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 dun, and then they use that as the gap between chorus for the rest of the song. I really like this song. This was a song that was like, because that first album, for as popular as it wasn't radio popular here in Michigan. Like it got radio popular right before this album came out. So this song was like me looking around at all my friends and just smiling because I had known about Linkin Park for years. Like I was an early adopter. Like they were like, I'm like, this is my band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when Somewhere I Belong comes out and everybody's listening to it, I'm like, you guys are a bunch of fucking posers. Which, you know, leads right into our next song, which is okay. So the next song, Lying From You, track 4. You want to talk about like definitive reasons. There's 3 of the next 4 songs I'm looking at are definitive things that people shit on Linkin Park for. Because
I was gonna say because this is a good reminder of that right here with the song
2:55.
Yeah,
2 minutes and 55 seconds.
This is a song that you can't make fun of them for, but it does fit that format, the radio format that they're trying to stick to. And again, but this is you can tell on the song too as we're playing in the background. This is a good, you know how you stack albums together. This is a good bridge in between when you get to for track. If you're looking at in terms of track listing, this is a good one before you get to hit the floor.
And yeah, Lying From You is it is the most formula song ever, and I like it for it. It's got good Chester vocals. You got, you know, classic slow white guy rap from Mike Shinoda, you know, and a lot of heavy reliance on the word you. I think I've made the joke to you before.
Yeah.
If you remove the word you from Linkin Park's career, they have no career. Because it's in every song. You know, you have wronged them for sure. You mean I don't know why you hate them so much, but they're lying from you. And then that's this is one of those songs that I have a real tough time trying to defend it to anybody who doesn't like it. Like if you just don't like Linkin Park, I cannot defend this song. Plain and simple. And it's the same with we'll get to it, but Faint is the same thing. I'll get there. Faint I have a lot of problems with. Lying From You I don't have as many problems with. I enjoy it. It's a little more melodic. It's a little more like, you know, in the endish. It's like a more aggressive in the end. But going in to Hit the Floor,
I was expecting this, Jason, because you seem like you're disappointed by this song.
Well, no, I like the song. That's the thing. I want more. 2:44. Like we're getting shorter.
Yeah.
Like we're getting shorter and shorter. And it's a song that you got Chester at his angriest. Mike's actually rapping. Like this is like them trying to be like, we can be more, but we're not really allowed to. At this
Warner
point,
Brothers told us not to.
No, Warner Brothers does not let them do it.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying you're not wrong. Okay. I'm saying no. Warner Brothers will not let them like break the machine. Like don't fuck with the formula. If it works, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's not broken, so don't fix it.
Because the narrative they try to sell here, Jason, with this album is that they had. They were in the studio crafting, but you look at the videos and look at everything else. It's a cliche of that time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, like,
well, the cliche. You got to remember, like, Linkin Park took the cliche and just did it better than everyone else. It's kind of like, or they didn't do it. Maybe not did it better, but they did it in a way that you could enjoy more. It's kind of like,
right.
Like Les Miserables. Like Les Miserables is not the best play ever, but everyone's seen it. You know what I mean? It's good at what it is.
Like, for example, when we get to Easier to Run, I like that song. Like, there's some songs that
it's 3 minutes and 24 seconds.
Yeah,
you actually get a whole song.
Holy shit! Holy shit! So
great song too.
Yeah, it is a great song, and it's a song that I think, for me personally, I remember seeing this in concert. It was really well done in concert.
Okay, can we stop for 1 second to talk about them in concert? Because that is one thing that they did super well. Like, that is one thing that Linkin Park, you cannot take from them. Like, you could say, oh, they're corporate rock, oh, they're garbage rap rock, oh, a bunch of white boys can't have that many problems with life, oh, look at all these rich guys, why do they hate life? Fine, you can say all that in the world, I won't argue with you. What you cannot take away is their onstage credibility. Like, there is so many documented cases of times where, especially right at the beginning of their career, right before this album's a little different, but during their touring of Hybrid Theory, where they would go out on stage and they would be booed right away. They're like, fuck this band, because they'd be on tour with like Metallica or something to that effect, or Metallica, or like a Hoobastank, something to that effect, and everybody wanted to see the other band that they were with. But they were like, no, we're gonna fucking win this crowd. Like they made Ozfest one year, and they're like, and Ozfest is like a metal ass tour.
Yeah, Black Sabbath and like Iron Maiden, those kind of bands.
Yeah, you had Slipknot on there, Limp Bizkit, Korn, and then Linkin Park comes up, and it's just a bunch of like pretty boy white guys from California, and they just won that crowd. Like people will tell you to this day, you can find it on YouTube in 5 seconds. Anybody who's toured with them has said they're consummate professionals and they're really good at winning crowds over, and they're very good at performing live, and I've seen them once, and they saved that show for me because it was actually the tour of this album. They were on tour with I believe it was Story of the Year was the opener, and then Hoobastank. It was a very 2003 show.
Oh my god!
Story of the Year, Hoobastank, and then POD.
Oh my god!
It was 2003, the concert. And Linkin Park was final. Okay, so Story of the Year does fine. Hoobastank does okay. POD, I was at the Palace of Auburn Hills. POD took a basketball court-sized pit and performed so poorly that the pit stopped moving. Like, the pit was just like, what is happening?
Yeah, because POD's only got, 2 songs?
At that point in time, they had 1 album, I believe. They had that Alive.
Yeah, like, that album is terrible.
That album's bad. It's not
very,
good.
very bad.
And so Linkin Park has to come out and essentially save the night. Like, and I'm not exaggerating here when I say this. Like, people...
I've heard about the show from other people, too.
So. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I had a couple buddies of mine who worked at Best Buy, when I was working at Best Buy at the time, tell me that, like, they were POD fans, but after the show, they changed their mind about POD and Linkin Park, and that's where I heard about Linkin Park. Like, I saw Linkin Park that following summer, so I was like, all right, well, I've heard good things about Linkin Park live, and that Summer Sanitarium tour was at the Silverdome, very hot. Limp Bizkit was a lot of those bands were just kind of mugging through it. Linkin Park, you wouldn't they thought it was like 60 degrees in there. So, but go ahead, continue.
No. I actually wanted to hear that from you. That's really cool. I didn't know that there was other people. But so Linkin Park comes out and they're just like, they did what you want a band who is headlining, who is like. Anybody with a brain is aware that the POD has killed it, and not in the good way. They have ruined the night, and because POD came out and did like a hot 40 minutes without acknowledging the crowd. They didn't there was no talking between songs. They just played basically like an album and some change.
It's not very Christian-like of them.
Yeah, isn't that fitting? Payable on death. They come out. They just did their songs, then they leave the stage. They don't say hi, bye. They don't talk to the crowd during it at all. It was very weird. And then Linkin Park has to come out and, without acknowledging that, because they have like 15 more stops with them, so they have to like pretend like they did great, and they were able to save it, which is nigh impossible to pull off, and I thought was incredibly impressive. And some of that can be their willingness to adhere to formula. Actually, to their detriment, I will say, if you listen to the Live in Texas album, all their call-outs are the same, both on the album and then at the time when they were touring. So, like when he's saying, like, "That's right, y'all," like, he's saying it at the same time every night, like at, a minute 15 of One Step Closer. You're like their call-outs are the exact same on every track.
See, a live element should be, I've always thought that every live album you listen to is different, distinctively different than the album version. Like, we talked about this before.
Oh, no, I mean, it's different than the album version, but I'm saying, like, when they perform it, so we'll take a song like One Step Closer.
What I'm saying is they don't, it sounds like to me they don't give a lot of chance for freelance and make it kind of like live songs, for example. Like, if you listen to a Steely Dan live song.
Well, it's an entirely different song.
Exactly. Yeah. That's my point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not only just that, but they have, like, their own live version of that song, and they play that exactly every time. So it's like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I can't because, we're doing a show or whatever. But there are examples where if you go look up a live version of a song that isn't... Okay, so say you take, like... One Step Closer, you listen to the Live in Texas version, and then you go look up One Step Closer Live in Amsterdam, which is not the one that's recorded in Live in Texas. Yeah. They're going to sound identical. Like, they're even going to have the same, like, "That's right, y'all, get up, everybody." Like, those are at the same points in the song.
And that's a problem, because if the live album, like, if you see anything from, like Bob Dylan, or, like, I go back a little dated myself, but even, like, any live album.
Yes, you're 64 years old.
Even Metallica, when Metallica does some of those live albums, each one is individually sounds different, because you want to, you could really say a lot about the band and how they're progressing and their sound. So that, to me, I think is a problem. And I don't want to get too far off from Meteora, but that's something.
I remember being. I just wanted to touch on it because it's kind of an important part of their whole thing. I remember being on, like, forums at the time, like, different, like, band forums, like, or like what are good concerts to see, like, it would come up, and there were people who, like, were touring fans of Linkin Park, like, there's people that tour with bands, and they said that they were like, okay, well, I really liked Hybrid Theory, or I really liked Meteora, and it was like my summer of being the summer I graduated high school, they went on tour for Meteora. I remember reading this distinctly. This guy, the summer he graduated high school, he took his, like, $5,000 graduation money that he got, and he decided to just follow them stop to stop. He said he got 3 shows in and was like, "Fuck this," because it was the exact same show every single night.
That sounds like something you do for the Grateful Dead, Fish.
But those are like 3-4 hour jam session shows.
Yeah, I was going to say, Linkin Park is a band of formulas, and we continue on with that formula that segues back into Faint. Faint is the
Speaking of formulas.
I was going to say, exactly. That's why I put that segue in there. Segue. Into the radio. This is a classic radio formula song. 242. This is a song that you literally will hear in the Top 99, and that's a song that you'll definitely get on that. And Jason, this is a song that I'm not a particularly big fan of, because it just seems like it's kind of like, this is where I'm like, this is where I kind of grew a little thin with this song.
No, I did, because even the chorus, like, tell me what the first line of the chorus is.
A Faint?
Yeah. I can't what? The way I did before.
Yeah, I can't.
I can't what? What does he say there? Do you know? Feel. Yeah. Okay, why is the song called Faint?
Right.
Like that. There's the problem.
And this is the song that I mentioned to. I kind of warned about earlier. That you see the video.
Oh God,
the video.
You saw that video.
You saw that video, and you also saw this song, and it was like, I think this is when a lot of those bands were doing the live. Let's play live in front of a bunch of people.
We'll give them a show. I'll record a video.
The System of a Down did the same exact video with minus the bright lights behind it.
Oh, for Toxicity, or no, for
Chop Suey.
Chop Suey, yeah.
Yeah, and remember, a Yellow Card did the same thing. You know, like playing in like
Ocean Avenue, I believe.
Ocean Avenue, correct. So this is where, you know, it's a good song. It gets you going. It's a radio, like for other people. For me, it's a song that's like.
All the Mud did the same video too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Think about it. It's the
2003, the video.
Yeah, 2003, the video. Yeah. Absolutely.
I wonder which one came first. We'd have to look that up later on.
Yeah, we should look that up.
Because I bet you Faint started it. That's my guess. Or if it didn't start it, it's like one of the first like 3.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Because I think we have to set where the precedent is set it with this song. But good Lord, this song. Again, I'm not making fun of it. Like, it's a radio classic. It's a song that if you're in the gym and you get all pumped up for it.
It's got a good scream in the middle.
It does.
It's got a really good scream in the middle.
The guitar, like that. But this is the video, for whatever reason, it annoys the hell out of me because they look at the background, they're like, you guys are not in the middle of this post-apocalyptic LA. Get the hell out of here with that stuff. Shit.
Oh, I remember the making of that video. If I'm not mistaken, that background was supposed to be the wreckage from the In the End set. Like, it was as if the Transformer had crashed or whatever the hell it was. I could be wrong on that, but I think
was this early Michael Bay work? No.
They did do work with Michael Bay later on.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they did the song New Divide for Transformers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And also What I've Done was for Transformers 2.
Oh,
New Divide, I defend New Divide as a good song, but everybody's like, oh, it's a Transformers song. I think it's a great song. But no, Faint is a song that I will not defend. Like, I won't, as a Linkin Park fan, as a guy who owned this album, who still owns this album, this is a song that I skip more often than not because it's got none of the attributes that I like of them except for that middle section where Chester's just wailing it. Like, Chester is letting you know that he has, as my friend Ryan Taylor once said perfectly, this dude's got like 5 sets of vocal cords. And that's true. He does have a great set of vocal cords. But that song, there's nothing that is in the normal realm of things I enjoy that is that song. Which is weird because it's so formula adherent as the songs before and after it are. But I don't know. It's just something different about it. Maybe it's the up-tempo and the short time that does it for me, but I can't do it. I can't listen to Faint anymore. I skip it almost every time. I listen to it for this show, but I skip it almost every other time I listen to this album. But the one I don't skip is Figure 9, because that's actually a good song.
That is a good song, and I will say that I will stick up for that song. That to me makes the song. I think this makes this album. Again, here's where you have the radio-friendly stuff, and then you have some stuff where you're like, okay, this band does have a little more depth to it.
Yeah, this is much like Easier to Run. This is a song that, and Don't Stay. These are all the same song to me. They're like songs that you know will never make the radio. A song later on, when we do another episode, there's a song on 1,000 Suns called Robot Boy. Same thing. It's like this song that's never gonna make radio. It's not designed for radio, but it's still great. It's designed for you to have songs between the radio singles that aren't just filler, because it's not just filler garbage. You know what I mean? It's actually a good track.
And it kind of takes away from them when you go into track number 9 into Breaking the Habit, because Breaking the Habit is that late night. It sounds like 1999 to me. It sounds like exactly like that, like scratching, like that. It just sounds very. It's giving you. It's a teenage anthem to me.
I love that song though.
Yeah.
It's one of my probably top 25 songs of all time.
And his vocals here, if you're listening to it, him. I'm breaking the habit.
He's doing like an unmimicable voice.
Yeah,
he has this. Okay, so that's the thing about Chester. He has like 4 different regular singing voices, and like there's the one that you hear on like In the End, which is like you can sort of you can copy it. In your car you're driving, you can copy it. You have the scream on Faint, which you can copy if you know how to scream. Or even if you don't know how to scream, you can just like you can do that. But Breaking the Habit is one of his 2 registers where maybe register might not be the right word, but it's one of his 2 voices that you can't copy. Because he's neither singing nor screaming, but he's doing both very well at the same time. And it's very, very hard because you have to have his exact vocals to copy it. And I've never heard anybody successfully be able to replicate it. Because it's just... I don't know if that's something he consciously chose. I know that it is a point on this, the DVD, The Making of Meteora that I mentioned. There is a whole, 4 minutes dedicated just to the making of this song. I don't remember it. I'll have to rewatch that when I get a chance. But I do know that voice that he uses on this song, is almost uncopyable because it's that fine line between female and male registers that he is always tiptoed. He has sort of an effeminate voice, and when he starts wailing, it gets a little bit more effeminate, and it doesn't work. But a female's voice is not deep enough to create this. It's really, I've never heard it successfully copied.
Yeah, and the reason why, I mean, a lot of people also give him, like, forget that he was an STP. He took over for Scott Weiland. He has, that's the thing, that's why I can't really totally shit talk this man, because he has a voice and
he's got the chops.
Yeah, he's got the chops for it.
Absolutely. No,
and this song kind of shows it here.
If you want to prove the chops, take one time out from Meteora. You want to prove the chops, go listen to the song Given Up. He screams for 17 uninterrupted seconds on one wail on that song. It's not edited. It's not extended. It's just him screaming with no music in the background.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And, there is proof positive. The guy has an unreal... You've never heard, I guarantee you've never heard in the 16 years that they were a band before Chester's untimely death, you never heard Linkin Park takes tour off because vocals, or because Chester's voice is ruined. They made every stop. Like, that's what makes it even more insane, is that this was a band that had 6 albums, and the 7th one was the only one where they weren't screaming.
Right.
So you have 6 albums of screaming.
It's raw.
And he's hitting every stop. They're hitting every single tour stop for a decade and a half. And that's incredible to me. So anyways, getting into the next track.
From the Inside.
This is another track that I really, I enjoyed in private. Like, this is a song that I enjoyed a lot. Because it's a song about, giving... okay, so it's a song about trying to, give yourself to your friends and then having them take advantage of that. And I identify with that immensely, and it's a song that's heavy where it needs to be, and it's also melodic where it can be, and it's very enjoyable for that. Do you have any experience with this album? Because I remember you mentioned before that you got stuck with this album in a breakup, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like the child in a breakup.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this is an album that I listened to in the car quite a bit because of a breakup and everything, and it was something that stuck with me. So I honestly feel that this is a point where it just seems like this was an album that was, like, I think the last of my emo youth, if you will, because this is something like it's where it represents your youth. This is me going, I think I've had enough of this, like, sound, and I liked it at the time, but the older I get, it didn't age well with me. So
this was me going, hey,
yeah,
rock music's kind of good. I better put this NSYNC and Savage Garden down. And that's and just to further clarify where my love for this band and this album comes from, is like, that's where I was coming from when I was 13 years old. They say you are what your what your parents listen to. My father was he worked a lot. So I listened to what my mom listened to. And what my mom listened to was your Hansons, your NSYNCs, your Britney Spears, your Backstreet Boys. I was familiar with all those. I actually still like Britney Spears' first album. It's a great album. But I needed the go-between to get to where I'm at now, where I listen to, Slipknot, In Flames, Dry Cell, like all these heavier bands. If without Linkin Park, those bands don't exist to me. At least to me. Without Linkin Park to bridge the gap from Britney Spears to Slipknot, I don't ever get to Slipknot and get to enjoy all I've gotten to enjoy out of it. So they're the highway to rock music for me. And let's jump right into this next track, which is a track that I've never seen a more appropriate title, because nobody listened to this song. I'm sorry, I had to.
I know. It won an award, though.
Nobody's listening?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the instrumental one.
No, I'm thinking of the song Nobody's Listening, which nobody listened to. Because it's like, I remember too on the DVD, like Mike Shinoda, like being super happy that they had like a Japanese flute on there to start the song. And he was like super happy. They're like, we're influencing from all over. We're taking influences from all over the world. This is part of my heritage, and so on and so forth. And like, nobody cared. Like, this is a song that, like, I enjoy it for what it is. It's a very enjoyable song. It's not in any way bad. It's fine. It's because it's guys at their best, creating. So it's going to be at worst, it's going to be very good, and it is very good. But it's not particularly memorable, specifically because you have such good things around it that it's, maybe on another album it would be good, but in this case, when you're looking at 2 tracks removed from, a song that I listened to maybe 13,000 times in my life, it's going to be forgettable.
Right.
And speaking of forgettable, the Grammy-nominated Session.
I was going to say, until you told me, it reminded me that this actually, I did not know the song won a Grammy until we talked before.
It did not. It was nominated.
But
and
still.
Credit where it's due. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I did not know this. This could be false. Somebody could be pulling a dupe on us. But as it stands right now, all we have to go on is Wikipedia is that this 2-minute and 24-second DJ track was Grammy nominated.
He asked for a track and got his track. So
it's not bad.
It's not.
Again, it's just like the track on the first one, which the name escapes me right now.
Right.
It was track 11 on the first one. It's track 12 on this one because they have that stupid forward, so they wanted to have 13 songs instead of 12. It's a song that, again, okay, so again, I think I told you this before. Truth being, be honest with you, I used to burn copies of this disc, and so I could have multiple copies. I would always skip songs 1 and song 12. They were never, and 1, 7, and 12 were never on my copy of Meteora. My copy of Meteora was always 10 songs long. I did not like Faint. Forward isn't a song, and Session, to me, it never resonated. But that leads into our final song, which is, for lack of better words, is the definitive Linkin Park song. I mean, I make the case.
Oh yeah, is the
Numb.
Yeah, Numb is the Linkin Park. If you think of Linkin Park, Numb is the song. To me, it is. It's ultimately what it is.
And I'm sick of people saying, no, it's In the End. In the End is the better song. In the End is the more definitive Linkin Park song. It's not. You're wrong. It's Numb. It always has been Numb. The second Numb came out, In the End got forgotten. And if you want a good example, by the way, of Chester's voice and to understand what it is we've lost with his passing, besides the fact that we lost a great man and a father, and the front man of a great band. There's a video on YouTube right now where somebody isolated the vocals on this track, and it's hard to understand because this is the other. Remember I told you earlier, Chester has 2 singing voices that are almost impossible to replicate. This is the other one. It's his vocals on Numb, specifically on the chorus, because the verse is can't you see? He's just doing his like melody voice.
Yeah.
But the chorus screams on this one are nigh impossible to replicate. And I've seen it done probably 13 to 20 times in karaoke's in the times of the past when I've been into karaoke's. Never to any success. Not just because karaoke is bad. Mostly because that's a nearly impossible to copy voice. And it's Chester doing what Chester does best, which is melodically screaming in a way that no one else can do. And that's something that shouldn't be lost. And that's on this album, it's on most of their albums, is that the guy was amazing. And this song is a perfect example of it. And this album is the perfect example of it. And this album actually, to bring it back to our first point and to kind of lead us into wrapping this up, this album is the definitive Linkin Park album. This album is the definitive nu metal album. This album is the definitive 2000s album. This album is the definitive of most things. And I think that, with time, a lot of people have said, nu metal is whatever, nu metal is garbagey, nu metal is it's terrible, it's a bunch of white guys shilling, it's just product, it's not anything I like or whatever. Fine, you know what, that's fine. But this album and Hybrid Theory before it, they can't be forgotten. They shouldn't be forgotten. And you can dismiss Linkin Park all you want because they did a bunch of songs for Transformers and they did songs for Pepsi and they're corporate sellouts. They're just Nickelback with a harder edge. Fine. Like, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I got in before they were that.
Right.
And because of that, I'm able to see that this is not a bad band.
You literally have a flag in front of your house that has Linkin Park on it. No, I'm just joking. No, but
I was very confused.
No, you carry that torch very well. And the thing about this album is, and before we kind of wrap it up, really, to me, Meteora is the last really time I really got into Linkin Park. After this, I really, there's Minutes to Midnight. There's even like the Rick Rubin stuff. when he adding his sound, adding his own individual sound, kind of breaking them away from being kind of a formulaic band to a band that's kind of like, okay, you have Rick Rubin attached to it. That means it's something serious, i.e. the Red Hot Chili Peppers. When he's done for Warner Brothers is nothing short of a miracle. But Meteora is an album that represent, like I said this earlier in the podcast, to me, as we talk about counting tracks here, track for track, this is the most enjoyable album that I've listened to Linkin Park. I went back and listened to other ones. This is this is the one I like. So
this is my, I said before when you asked, which one do you want to do as an album? I mentioned Meteor right away. I still put it neck and neck with 1,000 Suns. I think 1,000 Suns is maybe a little more melodically what I enjoy. But as I said the last time we talked about this band and this album, if I met somebody who had never heard Linkin Park ever in their life, they'd never heard a single song by Linkin Park, somehow they escaped pop culture for the last 15 years, this is the album I would give to them. Because it's the most accessible, it's the most even keel all throughout. It doesn't go too far outside of the parameters that it sets with Don't Stay. And it's the most, shooting myself in the foot on this one, the most commercial. And the most commercial is commercial for a reason. I remember, if I may spend 1 second saying, I used to rebel against anything commercial, which is ironic because I like Linkin Park.
Right.
But I used to rebel against anything that got popular, which is why I didn't like songs like Faint. Now I know I don't like songs like Faint because of, other reasons which I've explained here. But I used to rebel against anything that was commercial. Now I understand the reason things are commercial is because they're appealing to a lot of people, and the reason they're appealing to a lot of people isn't because they're bad. Or it isn't automatically because they're bad. And that's what this album exists to exemplify, is that just because a lot of people listen to it, bought it, and like it, does not mean it's bad.
Right.
Except for Nickelback. They're always bad.
Yeah. Nickelback, you talk about formulaic bands, Nickelback is the king of formulaic bands. So that is a band who I actually admit I like one song by them, and that's Leader of Men, which is out there, one of their first albums. So that's it. Yeah. But
Linkin Park, you can't be embarrassed to like songs. You can probably name a couple that you enjoy.
Well, it depends. As me being in the crowd I run with and being a little older than you, Jason, I when I say I like Linkin Park, I get a look. You're on the hand like, no, it's different. I think it depends on the generation. And as crazy as that sounds, I know we're only a few years apart, Jason, but it makes a difference.
It's weird because you were 20 when this album came out, or you were 23 when this album came
yep.
out, and 20 when their first album dropped. So
yeah,
you're still right in that prime time. Like, it would be perfectly reasonable for you to have been listening to them. It's not like you were 32 years old when Meteora dropped, and you're like, what is this kid shit? You were basically like 2 years removed from being a child. You know what I mean? You just were legally allowed to drink. You were probably just having an apartment. Perfect reason to be mad at the world. Like this, you were 22 when this album came out.
Yeah,
you were still just a little kid.
Yeah, and it's still kidding. Like I said, that sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where I think this album lives, is in the memories of that time, like 16 to 25, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a bunch of people who were in their mid 20s when they wrote this album to be making songs that define late teens to early 20s, and I think that's what this does.
Yeah, and it captures the moment very well, and really, for Linkin Park fans out there, I hope that when you listen to this, that we're not doing we're honest about this album, and I hopefully I didn't come across too harshly at all, because I really was as a host to this. Really, it's my obligation to make sure that Jason talks about the passion for this album and my feelings about this album as well. So leave a comment. Let us know what you think about episode 2 of Counting Tracks here on SportsRadioDetroit.com. And episode 3, we'll just plan it as it is. But if you have any feedback, what you thought about, what you like, what you dislike, let us know in the comment section below. And subscribe to us on iTunes and let us know what you think of this episode 2 of Counting Tracks. And Jason, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
If you haven't listened to this or any of the albums after, say you listen to Hybrid Theory, Meteor, and you were like, that's enough Linkin Park, I will say the 2 albums that follow it, which are Minutes to Midnight and 1,000 Suns, they're worth your time. There's good music to be found there. This band has always, to me, made good music, and I think some of that got lost. And I think Chester's passing has brought to light some of the music that was lost in the past. So, rest in peace to all of his fans and followers and family. I hope you guys are able to get through this.
Yeah, and I should mention that is something that we should be able to say that, if you have issues, you have depression, feel free to talk to somebody. That if that's our PSA for that, I would, I'll hang my head on that. So, but like I said, let's leave comments, let me know what you think, and get back to us. And we'd love to do another episode. We'll probably, like I said, give it some more time. We'll probably do another Linkin Park episode down the line. So, for Counting Tracks episode 2, I'm Roger Steve.